Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I am your host, William Tapley, also known as the third eagle of the apocalypse, and the co-prophet of these end times. This will be a follow-up to my program on that false flag terror attack in Paris last week. And on this program, I'm going to demonstrate that this Charlie Hebdo attack was in fact an inside job. And first of all, I want to remind you that I have been warning you for over a year now here on YouTube that this horrible iPad commercial was in fact a blueprint for a false flag terror attack. Very few people listen to me. But remember, it is not my job to prevent these attacks. It is my job to warn you. I am a watchman on the wall. I have no power or authority to prevent these terror attacks, which the Illuminati love to rub in our noses. They love to give the blueprint of what they are going to do ahead of time. And that's exactly what this iPad commercial was all about. I mean, can you think of any reason why you would hide an image of a naked woman giving birth in order to sell iPads? That makes no sense whatsoever. And I told you ahead of time, this iPad commercial was showing two events. That's why there are two arrows in this scene. That's why there are even two reels on the camera. The exploding sun was one event. The smoky event to the right of that, with the clouds in the sky, that showed the second phase of the terror attack. And that's exactly what we saw in this Paris attack a week ago. Now, the second blueprint in this iPad commercial is seen in this script on an iPad called The Scapegoat. And if that doesn't tell you that they are describing a false flag event, I don't know what will. And of course, please be aware of those two names, Charles and Frank. An obvious reference to Charlie Hebdo and France. And if you don't believe me, try putting any other name in there. How about William or Robert? Or David or John? Would they work? No, they wouldn't. Only Charles and Frank work. How about Patrick or Paul or James or Edward or Thomas? How about Dennis or maybe Leo? Or how about Richard? No other name fits. The only names that fit are Charles and Frank. That is proof that this iPad commercial was a blueprint for this false flag event in Paris. And how about the dialogue in this script? This is a clear threat to anyone who spills the beans. Sometimes when the mouth offends, a hand is needed to cover it. Is that why that police chief committed so-called suicide? Was he about to spill the beans? Or maybe he wasn't. Maybe this is just a warning. Maybe they killed him to let people know that if you try to tell anything about this inside job, if we can kill a police chief, we can certainly kill you. Now, for more than a month, I have also been warning you that the false flag attacks in 2015 would involve the numbers 815. And I did several videos on that, including pointing out that the grand jury announcement in Ferguson, Missouri was timed to provoke race riots. It was announced at 8:15 in the evening. That was not an accident. And of course, this Paris terrorist attack occurred on January the 7th. 1 + 7 = 8. And several of my subscribers have also pointed out to me another amazing manifestation of 8:15 in this Paris attack. And that is that the license plate on the terrorist getaway car featured the numbers 8:15. No, I am not kidding. Now, of course, Satan wrote the numbers backward, but let's take a look at this short clip. And I will play this twice so you can get a clear view of the license plate. Now, in addition to the very obvious 518, 815 backwards on this license plate, we also see the Roman numerals XV at the end, and of course that is 15, and at the beginning of the license plate is CV, and I believe that's 105. So the 815 manifestations in this false flag event in Paris are, well, they're stunning in my opinion. And now I want to demonstrate for you why this was an inside job. Why there were at least a few people at the Charlie Hebdo offices who knew ahead of time that they would be under a terrorist attack. And that is based on this horrible cover which they printed for their special Christmas edition. And of course this is a blasphemous image, presumably, of Mary giving birth to Jesus. It's a good thing Catholics are not as thin-skinned as Muslims, or Charlie Hebdo would have been bombed a long time ago. Now, I say whoever okayed this cover knew ahead of time that there would be a terrorist attack on their offices. Notice the strange similarities between this cover and this iPad commercial. And I don't just mean the fact that there are naked women giving birth in both. Incidentally, I don't believe this is Mary in this picture. Notice that she's wearing a nun's habit. This is a reference to the La Salette prophecies, where Mary told two French shepherd children, Melanie Calvat and Maximin Giraud, that the Antichrist would be born of a Hebrew nun. Notice this says Petit Jesus, or Little Jesus. That would be like we would say Christ child. But remember, the Antichrist in Daniel is called the little horn. This Charlie Hebdo cover is showing the birth of the Antichrist in the same way as this iPad commercial. And I am predicting, by the way, that the Antichrist will begin his reign in this year of 2015. But, as I said, there is more to this image than the fact that there is a naked woman giving childbirth. Notice that there are two events in this cover also. Notice the sunburst around the child. That corresponds exactly to the sunburst in this iPad commercial. Notice the smoke around Mary. That cloud. That is totally unnecessary. Why is that there? That correlates exactly to this smoky image to the right of the sun in this iPad commercial. These two images couldn't be much more identical if you tried. There are even two figures on the side in this Charlie Hebdo cover, which correspond to the two dead figures under the horizon in this iPad commercial. None of this is accidental. There were people at the Charlie Hebdo offices who knew ahead of time of this false flag attack. So why were they there? Well, maybe they weren't there. Maybe the ones who knew did not show up at work that day. Or maybe they knew where to hide. But I have a different theory. I believe that they were double-crossed. I believe this attack was meant to occur on the 8th of January, 8/15. I believe the attack occurred one day earlier in order to catch all of those people in their offices. And maybe that police chief committed suicide because he did know about the attack ahead of time. And he also was double-crossed. And the last connection I want to make between the iPad commercial and this terrorist attack in Paris is the title of the iPad commercial. It's called Your Verse. And another one of my subscribers pointed out to me what that verse is. It is, Je suis Charlie. That is not accidental either. That is the verse that this iPad commercial is referring to. Your verse is about this Charlie Hebdo attack. And as always, let me remind you once again, my job is to warn you. I am a watchman on the wall. It is not my job to prevent these terrorist attacks. And if you would like more information about my ministry, please visit my thirdeaglemedia.com website.